Okay, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a great interview. It's my honor to have Evan Kocon today with us here. He is the head swim coach of the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania Stingrays swim team. He's a teacher at the Nichmond Middle School, assistant swim coach at the Bethlehem YMCA, assistant high school coach at the Liberty High School, and also coaches Nichmond Middle School softball. It's almost what don't you do, Evan? Wow. Thank you so much for joining us and being with us on the show.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me, John. This is great.
I've been in swimming since I was 9 years old. So that's 50 years for me being in swimming. And I saw something really special because for the first time ever, I was a parent of a swimmer. I'm an old dad. So and I didn't push her into it, but my child met somebody else in our community that was on your swim team. They said how wonderful it was. And she decided on her own she wanted to be on a swim team. Of course, she's always in that, right? And I got a chance to see it from a parent standpoint. And I'm going to just explain a little bit later about what I thought of it. It's made a huge impression. And to have a coach like you at this level to help the children go forward is phenomenal. So thank you so much for, number one, for what you do for all the kids and for my child as well. And we're hoping our other child joins as well, just from a standpoint of not that we want to swim, have them swim necessarily, but we want to have them be involved with someone like you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That means a lot.
Tell us a little bit about what got you started in swimming, if you would.
Swimming for me has always been a family affair. I mean, I can still picture, I think I started on the Bethlehem Y team swimming when I was around 6, maybe 7, but I think it was 6. But I can still picture the Bethlehem Y, we'd go in, and it was almost every day that my sisters and I would go in and we'd sit in the lobby. We'd do our homework with the other, maybe some coaches' sons or daughters there. And then my mom would be on the pool deck with 1 or 2 of their parents coaching. And it was either at the Y or at Freedom, wherever our pool was. And we would do our homework. We would then have practice, do the whole shower thing, go home. And it was just a routine. And I feel like it's always been a part of my life since I was young. So I'm really fortunate for that because I think it really helped me to develop a love for the sport, being that I did it so young. But at the same time, I got to give my mom and dad credit because it was something that they had us involved in, but it wasn't over pushed. And it was something that they saw the love that we had for it. And my mom really transitioned her love for it into specifically me and my middle sister. My older sister was more of a basketball player, but I think the start of it really came from those younger years and just being able to develop it on our own. And like I said, not being pushed too much into it too fast.
When you say they didn't push, because that's a huge thing, isn't it? And as coaches, we see the other side of it sometimes. And what is it that you feel as a balance as a parent? You know, what would you like to see how a parent, because I had the double where my dad was very into it, but not pushing too hard, which was good. But he was definitely more into it. My mom, you know, you come back from breaking a record. She's okay, honey, that's great. Did you want, ham or tuna? What, So that was a balance. How about for you?
For me, for a coach's perspective, and I mean, I can see it from now on my summer team and the Y from 5 to 6-year-olds up to high school kids, 18-year-olds. It's definitely a delicate balance. It's a hard balance, I think, for parents. I'm not at that point in my parental stage yet, but from a coach's point, I definitely want parents to be involved. I mean, the kids see that, the kids feel that, but then you also see sometimes when the parents can be too involved, and it puts so much pressure on these kids. I'm talking specifically high school kids now. It can almost put too much that they feel it as a negative pressure. I would say support your kids and make sure you know what your kids' goals are, not so much what your parental goals are for your kids. So maybe your goal is for them, get a college scholarship to do that. And that's a great goal, but let your kids achieve their own goals, whether it's times, whether it's records, whether it's going to college to swim, whatever it may be. Support your kids in their goals and make sure you follow their specific athletic goals rather than your parental goals for where you think they should go.
The light that you brought to me, and whether I joined any swim team, I would see some things like this, but the way you have things structured, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, so beneficial. Everyone involved. Parents want to be involved. My wife got involved. She's never been involved in swimming almost for anything other than she likes to swim herself for fitness. It just seems like everyone is kind of welcome, and there's a certain degree of expectation that is kind of just sitting there. You're feeling it. And one of the things that I notice that I see a lot of good coaches do is they don't have too much, not that they don't have any, but they don't have too much connection with the parent. When I was first seeing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, well, how am I going to get to know if this coach is good for my child? What I did was I went up and I looked a little bit about your background and what's on the team. And I noticed you're there, and your coaching staff is so strong, and it's family oriented too. Part of your family is in there, working with you. And that meant so much to me. I don't know why, just like, wow, okay, this is going to be really good opportunity. And then we went there, we found out you're going to be with our daughter all the way up in school. And I wanted to be right away, get that going. Our daughter was on cyber school, which was really good in some ways for us. We became closer as a family during the pandemic in that way. At the same time, it presented challenges for everyone. But I noticed she was kind of connecting with some people that were there all the time that might be taking her down a road that we prefer not to. As soon as she got on your swim team, everything changed. And that's what I didn't understand, is like how much value from a parental standpoint. I never thought somebody else could raise my child, but they can certainly provide a huge benefit to them. And that's what I'm seeing with her. You've got people going the right direction, every part of your team.
I mean, I have to definitely give credit to the teams that I'm a part of, and I can't take all credit for it because, like I said, my mom and other people that I've been grown up with have instilled that team aspect into me. And I just, being a teacher in school and then also now coaching, I think the biggest thing is making sure that all the kids feel valued, whether they are a swimmer coming in with high skill level or a swimmer coming in that might be their first year on the team or their first year swimming ever. I have every summer, it's almost like a reset button. There was a newspaper article a couple of years back I was reading through, and it said every summer is new. Some kids you have coming back, some kids you don't know at all. And they fluctuate in the age groups, they move up, and you just kind of have to see what you have. And I think for me, I like summer swimming because of that. You start fresh every year and you have those returning kids, but you have to blend them with your new swimmers to your team and your new swimmers overall. And everybody has to be able to feel a part of that. And our summer team, I've been fortunate that parents have really bought into what I try to do, which is just that, to get everybody to be part of it. The older kids, they stay and they help with the younger kids' practices. They maybe take them and do one-on-one stroke instruction in another pool on the facility or something like that. And as a coaching staff, what we really try to do is just simply level the playing field. So we'll move people to their athletic ability within the lanes, but make sure everybody knows the optimal goal here is for the team and to get everybody to be a better swimmer, develop that love for swimming, and not just one single person, but everybody.
And you provide such a great understanding. I have to say that was when I was looking at it, because I'll sit back in my consulting firm when we're running a camp or a special event or something, and I say, looking at every consultant working with swimmers, working with parents, and really kind of supporting. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want to see. Then I went to your pool and I saw the same type of thing. I was so impressed. It's impressive. There's not fooling around. So you have this balance, it seems like, of trust, respect on both directions, from the coach to the swimmer and the swimmers to the coaches, a cooperative, productive environment. Everybody's trying to learn together and teach together. The coaches are helping each other. The coaches are helping the kids. You as leader there, and that's where you can see the strength come from. The leadership is there, and you don't get overly close to the kids and you don't stay too far away from them. You get the best balance you can get that I've seen. And I would say Eddie Reese, and I'm going to compare you to a really big coach here. Eddie Reese seemed to have that balance it was very, very healthy environment. The kids there knew what the expectations were. There's fun, but not getting too much across that border, and you have that down. I think any child that gets under you is going to get a huge benefit, and so are the families.
I talk to my wife about swimming all the time, and sometimes she says I have to stop talking about swimming because it's just constant. But when I explain that dynamic to people, I call it kind of a double-edged sword. And it's similar, again, I can go back to teaching, is that you need to build trust, you have to build that relationship, but at the same time, you have to have fun. So you have to have both sides of it. And I've really learned, again, through teaching and coaching, because I've started coaching as an assistant before actually teaching, I think that helped me a lot in both fields. I learned that early on. As my first year as an assistant coach for then Hanover, now Bethlehem, was after my sophomore year of college, right before I even did any student teaching. So I think that gave me kind of an idea that you want to have fun with the kids, but if you have too much fun, they're not going to listen. They're going to overrun you. And you have to have that dynamic of respect, trust, but then you still have to keep the kids interested and make it fun for them so they want to keep coming back.
I know a lot of people describe it as firm but gentle. If you treat it that way, that there's a lot of guidance going, and you have a plan. too. And you could see the plan laying it out, and you can make adjustments as you go, but I just see that happening there. You've had some exceptional swimmers. I know you have some exceptional swimmers on the team now. You don't seem to talk about them overly or because they're swimming. Swimming just seems to happen and develop while you're doing the important things in their life.
There was a really solid group that we've had, and we, like you said, we have a solid group right now, but this was, I think they're juniors going into junior or senior year in college now. A really good group. And it was a group that I actually was able to go down to Y Nationals with in 2018 before I became a dad. And it was a pretty big group. The one thing with them was they loved the sport. I would say that they learned more from the sport than I did teaching them about it, because it taught them responsibility, time management, and all those kids now, I can see them in their collegiate careers and just being successful because of the things that they learned. And they were elite swimmers in high school for where we were and where we are in the state in the sport of swimming. But I got to give them credit for using the sport and being able to translate that into now their lives in college and next couple of years as they move on from that. I mean, that's huge.
That is absolutely huge. We have our older daughter in two activities. They're allowed to pick two activities so it just doesn't go wild, and one of them has always been martial arts. We want them to be able to protect themselves as older parents. We want to make sure that they're capable of things like this. And there's a lot of discipline. I see a lot of commonality between that form of program and what they deliver. If you have like a good sensei, if you have a good coach, you have the same type of, they're disciplined at the same time, not overbearing. And such a good mix to have these two for our children. I think if you find the areas of discipline where people are working again with respect, et cetera, you build your future for your children in a lot of ways. It's not just learning academics. There's more to life. And I think academics are important, but there's more to life than just academics. And you were mentioning you get out there and you're able to, even when you're doing your softball, things like that, you can see people in a different light. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, being able to coach softball just in the springtime at school, some of those kids I have on the Y swim team, and then they look forward to swimming with me at the high school level too. My month of March is usually pretty crazy because it's like high school districts, Y districts, high school states, Y states. It's back and forth for the whole month. At the end of that month, we usually have softball tryouts, and it gives me, it's a little downtime for me. I get to go outside after school every day, coach something a little bit different. And swimming's never really off my mind. You transition to coaching those girls in middle school instead of teaching them in school. It's a refresher for me because it puts me in a different light and I get to coach something different and teach something different. But for those kids, those softball athletes, to then see me other than a teacher as a coach then, and I'm still teaching life lessons that I try to do in school, but then also teaching it in a different way with a different medium, that medium being sport, it gives them a little different perspective. And a lot of them, it gives them a lot different of an appreciation for it because it's another example that they can use.
I think that's one of the big things that you just said there was the life lessons, because when you use swimming or any sport or activity that you're doing as a microcosm for teaching life lessons and helping them understand, going through tough parts, right. So it's not just winning. It's, in fact, just winning is only one tiny aspect of the entire process that they're going through, which means that kids that aren't necessarily the best in their performance still can get a huge enriching experience for life and then apply it to things that they are very good at in the future. Right. It carries with them that foundation that when you have a child with a coach like you, there's not a way to pay for what you do. The return is so high. That's why, I think, what do you have, 130 kids or so on that?
Yeah, I think this summer we were around 125, 126, somewhere around that number.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're going to have to be fighting them off pretty soon because there's so many kids that would benefit from what you're doing. I mean, anybody that gets a chance to see it, you'll see it right away. It won't take you long to understand like what's happening there. And I was talking to someone recently who's a very famous psychologist, and he went into Doc Counsilman's environment. He says, I went there and I looked around, and he says, the pool wasn't special. All those things and the equipment wasn't special, but there was a special feeling of what was going on between the communication and the feeling everybody had. And that's what was special. And that's what I see over where you are, is this special feeling of people getting somewhere, going somewhere. You see this respect from the kids. You've got great kids. I met your seniors a couple of times. They're just such outstanding people. And when we were at the banquet you held, the outdoor banquet, I've never had an outdoor banquet. I loved it. was a lot of fun. You were standing there and you were telling the kids and the parents there, when you get up, here's our great athletes that are here, and not even just meaning great people they become. And you said, this is where you want to be. And I'm thinking in my mind, that's where I want my child to be, right, as she gets older, because I know that she's had a great supplement to her upbringing, right, and she's totally supported.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those kids, now that you're saying that, we had 2 seniors this year that came back. And that shows a lot that they wanted to come back just to finish, because last year they did not have the chance to compete in the summer because of the pandemic. And our league gave those seniors one more year, kind of like NCAA did, to be able to come back and utilize that last year of eligibility in our summer league. But then we had 2 seniors this year. So I always try to express that to the younger kids, and I tell the older kids that throughout the season. But before the first meet, I say it every year, is that I pull the 13 and overs aside, the 13, 14, 15 over. I say, you guys are the role models for the younger age group. So how you act, what you say, your behavior in and out of the pool, that's what the little kids are going to look at, and that's what they're going to emulate. They're going to see that, and that's what they are going to do. As far as that goes at the end of the season, then it kind of comes full circle, and I can then tell the younger kids, this is where you want to end up. This is how you want to act. This is how you want to be as a person.
Making that connection for them.
Yeah, like I said, it comes full circle, and for some of them, I think it sinks in right away, and for some kids, it takes longer. For those somewhere in that middle school range, they're kind of in flux as far as where they want to go, what sport is pulling them in which direction. But I think a lot of times it kind of resonates with the kids, and they say, oh, that is pretty cool. I want to be like that person. Or I want to be like this person. And a lot of the older kids don't realize how much of a impact they have on those younger swimmers.
It's huge. It's huge.
It's tremendous. It's so big. I try to get them to realize that by highlighting them like that. They don't like being put on center stage like that, but I use them as an example because they don't realize the impact they have.
I remember my mom told me that years ago, and she recently passed away, and she says, you'll never recognize how much you impact people around you. When you get to be that older swimmer and you're that role model, and you realize the responsibility and the weight of that you're pulling these future kids, you mean a lot to them. They're going to be a lot more like you. And when you see that as a parent, you see your child moving in that direction towards that outstanding type of individual that you've had a big impact in building them and doing that. You always want to be there, and you want to have other people go there because it just makes sense. I don't know how many lives you're going to touch, Evan, but I know you've already touched a lot. You just have a tremendous impact. My question is, how do you keep a balance for the coaches out there that are going to be listening? How do you keep a life balance with all this that you're doing? Because I know you've got a young family now and all, right?
I think since 2019, since I became a dad, it's definitely, everybody says having a kid's life-changing, which is 100% true. I definitely could not have predicted anything of how my schedule was going to change or anything. And I think the mindset changed. But as far as what I try to do is I just do what I can. And as for what I mean by that is I definitely try to make family time, whether it's on the weekends or whether it's for the YMCA, for example. I got to hold myself back from being there every day. When I was the first couple of years out of college, I was at Liberty, the high school. I'd be there for morning practice from 5 until sometimes 8:30 at night for Y practice. And that was 2-3 days a week. And then I had to back off maybe to 1 day a week, maybe cut out some morning practices. But the time management thing has really kind of opened my eyes, and making sure that I'm there for my family, doing what I need to do. But at the same time, I can't give it up. Not yet.
Right.
So it's one of those things that's just stuck with me.
From what it appears, again, I don't know well enough, but it seems like you got a great wife.
Yeah, she supports me in what I do.
That makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah, it's a huge difference. And she lets me do my swimming stuff, my coaching stuff. I do some contracting work on the side because I teach tech ed. I teach hands-on woodshop stuff. So I do contracting work on the side too with an air conditioning company. And it's almost like I'm always going, but she lets me do what I like. And if I'm going too far, she reins me back in. Which I got to thank her for that, because she keeps me on a level keel sometimes. If I'm getting a little too busy, she sees that. Yeah.
I recognize that when I first got married, I said, because I was doing that 7 days a week and just, your whole life is that. And then I realized if I'm not even taking 1 day off or spending time with my family, why have a family, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're sacrificing them for your passion. You might as well not. But yeah, it's always a tough life balance, but you seem to be really getting your arms wrapped around it. And you got a young child, right? And and that's going to be important that spend a lot of time with dad. So that's
great. I think that one of the big things is and I learned a lot this summer, because this was last year with the pandemic, and the year before that in the summer, my mom coached and I provided some workouts for the team, but I wasn't there physically every day. We had just had my daughter Taylor. So this was my first summer back. And one thing I definitely learned this summer was to learn to delegate, trust your coaching staff. Prime example was we used to come together every day before a meet and do the lineup together as a whole, because my goal as a head coach is to have everybody know, coaches, to know each of the kids, not specifically stay with one age group, to try to fluctuate as best you can. And it's tough, but you still want consistent. So one thing I had to do this year to kind of delegate some more time, save some time, was just give a lineup to maybe a coach that does that age group the most. That way it saves some time for me. It gives us a little more family time during the summer, the beginning of summer. But the biggest thing is trust the guys you have on staff. And if you don't, address an issue and make it better, because that's how your team's going to get better.
And I think that they appreciate that trust, and they see it as part of their job anyway. So if you're over assigning, right, it's better if they get a chance to dig in like that.
Yeah, no, I think for we had one coach this year that she came back, but she was a freshman now going to sophomore in college. And I think that was huge for her to be able to say, oh, I get to do a lineup now and I get to do this. And it's responsibility, but it gives them that connection and that ownership of she coached Lily a whole bunch in the 8 and unders, I know, and even the middle of the pool. And it gives them that ownership of, I coach these kids. I want to see them improve. This is where I want to see them improve. So it's a little more of a connection there.
You had some pool problems, I think, earlier in the year, right? Can you describe how to turn that around? That was fantastic, because just think about this for a moment. If you don't have pool space, all these kids and all these parents and families lose out on your ability to coach them. So we had program is so important to the community. Like these pools are like closing down, not opening, things like that. They don't understand what they're losing in their community, the value of what you're doing for those children that are growing up in that community. And you can have kids go bad, and you can have kids go down the right road. And you're a part of bringing our children down the right road. Losing that pool is so much more than just not having water time.
We've been fortunate. I mean, when Hanover's pool went down, I think it's 3 years ago now, with pretty significant leak, the city of Bethlehem allowed us to use Stark Pool, one of their older city pools, as a training facility. We couldn't have meets there, but we were still able to have the team and kind of keep it together. This year, Bethlehem, they finished Memorial Pool, which was a complete renovation. And I think for us to be able to get back in, it was huge. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a place to go, because Hanover's pool is still in process of being designed, and hopefully they decide to do something with it. But as far as timing and pool space goes, I mean, that immediately takes me to this year, because we were able to swim at Memorial, but we weren't able to start until June 12th or 15th. I forget what it was. And normally we're in a non-pandemic year. I like to get those kids in after school, sometimes at the high school, in the water there, just to, we were talking before, just to see what our team's going to look like in the summer, see who's in what age group, what skill levels do we have? What skills do we need to develop? And this year was significantly tougher.
You had a great team.
Yeah, I mean, we were super fortunate that I think, it's credit to my coaching staff, because we started on a Monday, and thankfully, we started on Tuesday. Some teams in our league had a meet that Thursday. So we were lucky that we had a bye that Thursday, and then we didn't have a meet till Monday. So we had 4 days of practice before our first meet. And it was that first lineup took a while. We had to do that one all together, because we had to see where we were, what our starting points were going to be. But like I said, credit to my staff for being able to figure out who could go where and who needed to work on what to make it all come together.
From us being the first year, we were a little surprised, but that now makes sense as to why that happened. Because I know Lily was on the team for, I think, 4 days, and then she had a race.
And especially for the younger kids. With the younger kids, that can get pretty rough, because you say to an 8 and under, oh, wait, I have to swim butterfly? Wait a minute. I can change some things.
And you established immediately, the first thing that we saw, even before she ever got in the water, because I was there on the first day of practice, I wanted to see, what was going on. I was kind of hiding in the background, not to be seen if I could, with my wife there. The real important thing is you set them down and you established communication right away. This is how it's going to go. You're very straightforward. Here's what the rules are. Everybody just straightened up, and you saw it right away. Everybody's ready to go. And I think that's a big deal, the way you do that. When you lose that, and I just want the folks to understand, when you lose pool space in your community, and I know it's not always easy to afford a pool, and so pools aren't that affordable. Understand that what you're losing is not just water and the ability to climb in the water and have some fun. Yeah. You lose a program like this, you're losing a lot of the structure that gets built in. The best things that happen to children are when you have a great coach and coaching staff that are working with them and building your community members. These are your future community members that are going to live there possibly, right? And if they don't, they go to another community and they're going to, right? We want America to go stronger and stronger. Right. And if we have programs like this for our youth, they are so invaluable, because at what point down the road do they get this type of coaching? It all happens before they're 18, right? Because once they're 18, you lose that opportunity to guide them. And then you know who they're with. Here we know.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that it caused me a lot of stress and anxiety was wondering, what are these kids doing? Because last year, not having the summer season, you got to think, where are these kids going? What are they doing? Are they going to stick with sports, or are they not? They had a whole summer off, and some of them, I'm sure, thought, oh, this is nice, relaxing, but you don't know what they're going to get into, where life's going to take them. Like we were saying before, which path are they going to choose? For me, as a teacher in middle school, and then again with these kids, you want to influence them to find the right path in life. And not everybody's going to go the right way, but you want to do your job as a teacher and as a coach to help them find their best path, whichever it may be, or wherever it may be.
They can get off track like that.
Yeah.
Right. And when they're under the guidance, they're coming back, they know the next day they've got this to do, right? They're going to meet other people that are going forward. That's really what we're about here. And if we can do that as a community, right, more programs, whether it's swimming, whether it's whatever the sports are, keeping the kids involved and going forward in a good way, because our children are our future, not us.
Yeah. No, my time's done.
and our, right, so the future of this country, this future of, right, is how we develop our kids. Without those type of programs, your country falls apart, in my opinion, because it's not being developed. They're getting involved in all kinds of things. And one of the things that we're competing against now is like a phone. And the games on the phone. That doesn't give kids great guidance. It doesn't give them a great future, and it therefore doesn't give us a great future. People like Evan do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. What type of, I mean, you got a chance to go into our fast track tools as an we'd love to have you help the kids if you can with those tools. What types of tools did you find in our fast track that you felt like might be beneficial at the level that you're going to be working with? Because you have the high school kids, and you can use anything you want.
Yeah, I mean, the two biggest ones to me, definitely the animated graphics that you guys have provided. For me personally, I'm very computer savvy. I'm tech savvy. I teach technology.
Oh, so, you're going to do great with that.
Yeah. So I know one of the gentlemen that I coach with at the high school, he's an engineer, and he can sketch very well on the whiteboard, and he sketches the animation on there for the kids to see body lines and where their arms and legs should be catching water and holding water. And I can't draw like that by hand. I can do it on a computer. You give me a CAD program or something like that, I can go at it. But for me to be able to have that as a resource, for me, being a non-hands-on artistic person, to be able to pull up on my iPad and show the kids is huge. And then also the calculators on there. I mean, we talk about stroke rate, we talk about stroke count. And the kids, if I had $1 for every time I told the kids stroke count during practice, whether all year round, I'd be retired next year, because it's so important for the efficiency of their stroke. They don't understand it yet, but the calculators that you were being able to show me in calculating their cycles, and how if they improve their cycle and the rate of their cycle, that then translates to their goal. And it just makes it I think they can grasp their goals easier. Because right now I'm talking with a lot of our high school kids about where do they want to be either at the start of high school season, where do you want to be by Christmas, and then we take it to the third leg of it, which would be where do you want to be by districts, which is the end of the season. For them, they might say, oh, I want to be 47-0 and 100 freestyle. Well, that's great. If you're at, I would say 48-ish, around there, you can get down to it. But some kids, they have very lofty goals and they just seem unmanageable, although I know they're there. To be able to use the calculator and say, oh, you just have to increase your stroke cycle by 15 hundredths of a second, a tenth of a second every cycle, that then translates and correlates to a faster swim. It makes it more manageable for them, as opposed to being more daunting, saying, oh my God, I have to drop 3 seconds to make my goal.
Just take this off and it'll calculate.
Yeah, I can think of myself as a kid thinking, oh, I got to make that district time. I got to drop 4 seconds. It's daunting for a high school kid mentally. And not only mentally, they think physically they can't do it, but the mental aspect is huge, to be able to see that and have them understand that it's possible.
And I'm thinking, I remember when I was coaching years ago, like writing those, first of all, the idea of the race map is kind of unique, right?
Yeah.
And I learned it. I have a show on how I learned it. Was interesting. The next thing is actually building a race map for each child, for each race. If you're really good at it, it takes you 20 minutes to calculate it out. This thing does it in a second. So, and I'm guessing you don't need more time to do more things just for fun.
Yeah, right.
That's good.
My schedule's pretty packed up, so it's good.
Just in closing, because I could talk to you all day. You're very fascinating to talk with. What messages do you have for the younger kids in our community or younger coaches that you see coming up and they want to run a program and make a contribution like you are?
For kids, I always tell the kids to be involved. For me, I was a multi-sport athlete growing up. Both my sisters were multi-sport athletes. And I think we're only one family, but from the kids that I coach, swimmers that are multi-sport athletes, I think it gives them a different perspective because it allows them to have that time. Maybe it's just for a couple weeks to have the downtime, and then you come back in, maybe one sport in between or however they choose to schedule it. But it keeps things fun. It prevents burnout. I see a lot of kids, and I've had kids in high school that have only swum year round, and they get to junior, senior year of high school, and they just get to that level where they've done it too much, I think, or they go to college and it just kind of, it wanes on them and it's been too much. So have fun with it. To the kids in the sport, have fun with it and keep it fun. If you find that swimming is no longer being fun for you, then you have to find a way to keep it that way, because if it's not fun, you're going to lose your love of the sport and you're going to lose your drive. And I think once you lose that, it's really hard to get it back. And to be able to do that as a coach, then it's your job to make sure you keep it fun for the kids. The biggest thing that I have learned is you get out the investment that you put in. And what I mean by that is if you're a coach and you just want to show up and you want to be on deck and you want to be there as a coach, that's fine, but that's all you're going to get back. And if you're not invested in your kids, if you don't put in the time to develop workouts for what they need specifically, to do a lineup to help them achieve their goals specifically, you're not going to get back what you want because you're not putting the time in. And I tell that to coaches that I see. I tell that to kids in my classes and on my sports teams, that you're only going to get out what you put in. And that's not only in sports, that's in life. So if you want to have $1 million in life, you better work hard to get $1 million. If you want to reach your goals in swimming or in academics or wherever you want to go, you got to put the work in. And that's not only for kids, it's for coaches too. The coach wants their team to be the next level. You have to invest in it and you have to put the time in.
That's really fantastic. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that at some point we have a couple programs that are coming out and that we'd love to have you join us on if you ever have a moment.
Yeah.
That's a lot. If you do, we'd love to have you come back. You can see Evan, if you're getting this on Facebook, you can also come in and see our interviews on the FM Discovery Center, and he'll be up there, and hopefully he may even be able to contribute some more. I think the ideas that you have, I think you could coach on any level, Evan. It's just, it's solid all the way up. So thank you again for working with our children in this community, and hopefully more and more people can get a benefit from what you're doing here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today, John. It was a great time.
My pleasure. Thanks.